5-6 years later, in America, we had to flee Iran because we were just getting arrested so many times and we were endangering the house churches by being there. So we ended up coming to America. I had 2 kids, and 2012, my husband gets arrested in Iran. His parents lived there, so he was going back and forth. He gets arrested for being a Christian. And for me, that felt like, it's like a lot of, in my journey with God, every step has been, I've taken a step and it felt confusing. Like, why, God, are you doing this? So my question was like, God, why would you, I'm already going through so much, why would you have one of the worst nations in the world arrest my husband? And I prayed and fasted for so many months, and I felt the Lord say, I'm going to use this for the gospel. And I don't know how many of you know the story. The most painful, difficult time in my life, God was using for the gospel. What happened was, after I think 6 months of really praying and wanting my husband out of prison, I decided to go to media. And I didn't know it was going to become such a big story. Some of you might know me as Naghmeh Abedini, Saeed Abedini, pastor in Iran. It became close to 1 billion people were reached about this story. So I went to media. Someone wrote an article on Fox News, and within a day, like, they just released the written article, and so many people were sharing it that they called me. They said, we're going to have you on the news tonight. And I had camera crews in my house. And so my first interview was like with Hannity of Fox News, and then it exploded. It exploded, and I was speaking at the European Parliament, German Parliament, Dutch Parliament. I was speaking at our Congress like 3 times. And I met with President Obama, flew to Boise, Idaho to meet with me. I got a call from Donald Trump to meet with him. It was just like, but one thing the Lord reminded me of was when I was a little girl and I got that Bible, I had opened it up. It was a Psalm New Testament. And I had read Psalm 1, and I got halfway through Psalm 2, and that's when my mom took away our Bible. And Psalm 2, it says, today I've begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations as your inheritance. And that's all I remembered. And all those years without a Bible, I would just cry and say, God, today I'm your daughter. Give me the nations as my inheritance. I don't want money. I don't want fame. I just want the nations. And I want to see the nation of Iran, get saved. And so one time I was speaking at the United Nations, and I had all these ambassadors. I had the president of the United Nations and the secretary in front of me. I had all these nations around me in a circle from every country, including the Iranian government, the ambassador. And then on top of me was all these translators. And I started sharing the gospel about my husband's in prison because he believes that Jesus Christ, came to die for our sins, and whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting. And so I started sharing the gospel at the United Nations, and all these nations were hearing it in their tongue, in their language, and I start crying. And God said, as a little girl, you wanted to preach the gospel to the nations. I'm giving that to you right now. I'm giving you the platform for it. And so I just want to share this because, my life is not the typical. It's not the typical. I've experienced persecution. I've experienced advocating. I think Eugene's writing the next book. So we got to spend a lot of time telling my story. But there's a part where I chased down the Iranian government in a hotel in New York. And the government was basically like, who's this person? Wherever we go, she's there. She's like a woman who they don't, in Iran, this girl a month ago got killed for showing hair. So here I am without a head covering, a Christian woman, looking at them and saying, why are you persecuting the Christians? If I did that in Iran, I'd be dead in 2 seconds. And so God gave me platform to call out Christian persecution to one of the most evil nations in the world. God gave me a platform to share the gospel with our government. I spoke in front of Congress. Every single time I shared the gospel, and there was congressmen and senators coming up and crying and saying, I'd never heard that before. I got to share the gospel with Trump, with Obama. And so God used my husband's imprisonment to give me the desire of my heart, which was to share the gospel and also to be a voice for the persecuted church.